Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Beyond the Cage YouTube channel. I am your host, Jim Graham. Alongside me is my very colorful co-host, Dave Sadler.
Howdy.
And joining us once again here on the Beyond the Cage YouTube channel is MMA blogger extraordinaire, Mr. Ted Czech. Ted,
come on.
How you doing?
What's up, everybody?
Unfortunately, we are missing our good friend Gabe Keith from MMAfreak.com, so he may pop up, maybe he won't, but we'll give a shout out to Gabe anyway. And of course, it's a great website, MMAfreak.com. Follow them on Twitter at MMAFreakout. So there's a cheap plug for him. So
yeah,
we are here today to talk about a couple things MMA related. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about UFC on Fox 9 upcoming this weekend in Sacramento, but we really want to focus on the big news the UFC has made this week, as I believe it was announced on Wednesday that the UFC has signed 11 Invicta fighters from the 115-pound weight class, and those 11 fighters will take part in the Ultimate Fighter Season 20, and I'm assuming there'll probably be more cast members added, but instead of the show winner just getting a UFC contract, the show winner will actually be crowned the inaugural female strawweight champion for the UFC, which has never happened before. The closest kind of was when they had the comeback season, Season 4, where the winner of the show got an immediate title shot. That's about the closest comparison in terms of the Ultimate Fighter that we've seen in this. So pretty groundbreaking, the UFC adding, another female version of the Ultimate Fighter. This time it will be all females. In the initial report I looked at MMA Junkie, the coaches may be male, they may be female. No coaches have been announced yet. I think for the sake of having an all-female cast, you might as well have all-female coaches. I just think that makes the most sense. I wouldn't be mad if they have men coaching. That would be fine. I mean, if there's two, kind of like a rivalry type of thing, and they feel like that's a good thing to promote, then so be it. But before we get into the particular details about the cast members and other fighters we might get to see, but just your general thoughts on this concept of having, first of all, the Tough 20 crowning a strawweight champion, kind of historic, and then signing all these fighters from Invicta. We'll start with you, Ted.
Yeah, well, it kind of made me think of, it's not quite apples to apples, but how about when Ronda Rousey came over from Strikeforce, when she was signed to the UFC from Strikeforce, and they just said, hey, guess what, you're the UFC champion now. I mean, it's kind of not exactly the same thing, but yet, there wasn't a fight within the UFC to crown the UFC women's bantamweight champion either. She was kind of grandfathered in or grandmothered in, if you will, whatever. But yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right, Jim, that it is historic in the sense that whoever wins this tough is the strawweight champ. The thing that I found interesting was when they, I found out this news, and these 11 women were basically moved over to the UFC. That's also historic from Invicta. I guess I don't know all the ins and the outs. I don't know if any of us do, but I would guess that Shannon Knapp, who runs Invicta, sold their contracts.
That's
right?
what it appears, Ted. Just to brief you real quick, on the article I got from MMA Junkie, it says the promotion has acquired the contracts of 11 Invicta FC fighters. So I'm assuming that means there was some type of buyout. So that means regardless of what, at least just looking at that real quick before, and then I'll let you finish your point, it seems as though even if they lose the show, even if they lose in the first round, they still have fights because their whole contract has been purchased. So regardless of what happens, all 11 of these ladies are going to be in the UFC.
Well, all right, that's interesting. But and I was reading what Shannon Knapp was saying, in that she said, hey, look, I don't consider Invicta a feeder organization for the UFC. She considers Invicta as an organization that is breaking down barriers and forging its own path. She's saying, hey, look, I've got more weight classes than the UFC. I'm even going to probably start a 155 women's division, and you know, this is why she got into this in the first place, was to get female fighters as far as they could possibly go, and she realizes that Invicta is not the major league, the UFC is, and so for her it was kind of like graduation, sad to see them go, but also happy, kind of bittersweet. So I mean that's a great thing that the UFC didn't overtake or buy out Invicta, but sees the value in having Invicta exactly where it is. Sees its role in the sport. I don't know, as a feeder. I mean, Shannon doesn't like that word, but essentially that's what they are.
I mean, she may not like that word, but that's kind of, I mean, when 11 of your fighters get bought out all at once, you're a feeder system. I mean,
right.
It's not like 1 or 2 left and is joining this cast. I mean, 11, that's pretty much their division. I mean, the Invicta's going to have to go out and find a whole new strawweight division. And so the next time we see strawweight fights in Invicta, we're not going to know any of these girls. So they got to completely replenish the stock, because all these girls are either a champion or in title contention or had just been in title contention. I mean, these are not like 11 of the girls who fought on the undercard of Invicta. These are like 11 of their best fighters.
Yeah, but Shannon Knapp has a knack for doing that, for finding the talent. I did read a quote about that too, and she was saying that she doesn't really see that as anything that's insurmountable. She's got people waiting in the wings. Yeah, granted they won't be household names, but she has that ability to kind of bring them up and let them rise through the ranks. So doesn't sound like she's worried. Here's the other thing I was going to say. If she said no, if Shannon Knapp said, "Sorry, UFC, no, I'm not going to let you acquire these contracts," they would have buried her. They would have just started their own strawweight division, and then one way or another over the course of time would have brought all these women over, and so I think it was a smart move on her part to work with them.
Hey, I want to go off a couple of points that you said. To clarify, Jim, right now on Invicta's roster they have 17 strawweights. So, like you said, the best 11 are gone. There's 6 that we've never really heard of that remain. Second of all, to Ted's point, I think that you're right. She would have got buried, but I think Shannon Knapp is smart enough to realize that the fact that Dana White took 11 of these ladies to the UFC, to the strawweight division, that's a huge plug for Invicta, because
right.
if I'm Jan Smith fighting in Detroit, Michigan for random promotion, where if I get a fight contract from Detroit, Michigan, or from Kansas City, Missouri for Invicta, and I know that the UFC has eyes on the Invicta product, she's going to get the cream of the crop that's coming up. Because, like, for instance, the guys at Vigilante MMA wrote an article about Holly Holm wanting a 6-figure deal. Holly Holm's fighting in promotions that I've never heard of, and I don't know if the UFC has eyes on that product.
Doesn't she fight for Legacy?
Well, she did. Her most recent fight wasn't for Legacy. That's what I was talking about. But by this announcement, I know for a fact that the UFC is watching the Invicta cards, and they think very highly of the Invicta product. And one other point that I wanted to read to you, I read on, where am I? Oh, man. MMAmania.com. I'll read you the headline. New UFC strawweight fighters getting paid up to $40,000 prior to their Octagon debut. And I'll read you this little quote here. It says, during Wednesday night's late edition of Fox Sports Live, it was revealed that fighters will be paid at least $32,000 each prior to stepping foot inside the Octagon. Invicta's current champ, Carla Esparza, is the exception. she will nab a cool 40,000 herself before ever throwing a punch. Basically, what they're saying.
Bonuses.
Yeah, basically what they're saying is, here's $32,000. Don't do anything stupid before we start taping in May.
So it's kind of like a signing bonus, but since they didn't really sign, it's just kind of like, hey, welcome to the UFC bonus.
Well, and it makes sense because it even says it in the article. Some of the people on the undercard of this past weekend's Invicta were making 1 and 1 to show. So they were making $2,000, and now basically they're saying, you're our talent. We don't have anything for you until May of this year.
So basically 6 months.
So train, don't go skydiving, don't do anything crazy, just be ready to be on the show. Yeah, so that's all my points until we start talking about the fighters. Hold on one second,
I would
Jim.
just your initial thoughts first of all on the announcement, because I think it was on our show, and we brought up, I think it was during a headline round, we brought up, if he was going to add another division. I personally thought a 125 would make more sense for the females, just because the bantamweights would just simply drop. But I know you were kind of more leading towards you kind of like the fact that he would add a 115. So just kind of your initial thoughts kind of on the whole announcement and the historic tough season, kind of all that. Just right now here.
Yeah, no, 115 wasn't. When we were on the show and talking about it, I was like, yeah, 115 would be nice. I was at Invicta this past weekend. 115 is definitely the way to go. These ladies, I don't know if either one of you guys have seen 115 ladies fight live, but you think flyweights are quick in the men's division? Holy cow, these ladies are flying in there. They could go 15, 16 rounds at a time. Perfect call by the UFC. The talent that they brought, I think it's a perfect call. You want my thoughts on the season? It's going to be weird because these girls, I'm assuming, are going to live together in the house, but there's like legitimate beef between some of these girls. You know what I mean? Clearly, if you follow Twitter, Felice Herrig and Carla Esparza are like this. I mean, like, they're inseparable. They always tweet each other, this, that, and the other thing. They're fighting. There's potential for them to fight for the first ever UFC belt. Is it going to be like the real world? Are we going to actually see? What could happen?
Or is it going to be Bad Girls Club?
Yeah, that's basically my point. I mean, we have the ability to see some great fights. Yes, no. But the cast is perfect, and there's a lot of stuff that they need to iron out for me to know, because these have to be legitimate fights. You can't have a tournament in the UFC and it doesn't count on your record. Like all that logistical stuff, they have to work out.
Yeah, it can't be 2-round fights.
Yeah. If you're gonna name or crown a champion, they've got to be 3-round legit fights. I wouldn't even mind seeing a live season for this one.
And just real quickly, I get both your guys' thoughts because I hadn't hit on it, but just would you prefer, since it is going to be the first totally all-female cast, would you like to see female coaches, or are you kind of like me where it doesn't matter? If you got 2 coaches who I think are good, it shouldn't really matter. But I'm just saying, in theory, it would make more sense to have female coaches.
I don't know that it really matters. I think we saw with this past season of Tough that females can coach males and vice versa. I think, as you were saying earlier, Jim, if you have 2 guys that could make a great rivalry as coaches, who are ready to go, then they should step in as coaches. And then maybe they could have a couple of females on their staff. That would probably suffice. I don't think you necessarily have to have females as coaches just because you have an all-female cast. I don't think it's necessary.
I'm going to take a totally different approach, Ted.
Okay.
I don't want male coaches on here. I don't want two coaches who have any sort of beef with one another, because that's not, of all the seasons, this is the one that none of that stuff matters. I don't care if we see these two fight. You're going to crown a champion. Like, this is legitimate stuff, not just a contract. This is groundbreaking stuff that we're going to see. And I'm going to give you two, since we're on the Google Hangout, I'm going to give you visuals of who my choices for coaches are. Can you see that?
Okay,
No.
Liz Carmouche.
Liz
Okay.
Carmouche.
And Kat Zingano. I think Kat probably should be one.
I think Kat should be
Because she kind of got her chance stolen away from her
right.
by injury. So I think just for that fact, she should have it. And in terms of, hierarchy of list. And I wouldn't even be opposed to, you kind of mentioned, Dave, that they wouldn't have to fight. I wouldn't be opposed to the UFC maybe picking a couple people from the Hall of Fame that aren't fighting anymore actively and just having, like, two coaches just be coaches. Like, they're not fighting or anything. Like Matt Hughes or Chuck Liddell or,
Mark Coleman.
Randy Couture, Dan Severin, someone like that, to just kind of like, they're coaches, they're Hall of Famers, they've been to the top of the sport, and that would be something that would never been done before, and kind of a way of, it's Tough 20, it's historic, you're adding legendary coaches, there's no worry about the fight, all the focus is on the ladies and them fighting for a potential world championship.
How about...
Well, that's weird. I mean, because they've never done that before. I just don't know how you would bill that, because it's always been, I'm not saying just because it's always been you have to do it this way, but, I mean, it's always been this coach, this team versus this team. Like, how would you, it's always been teams. How would you set up the two teams?
That's a good point, too.
I mean, at the end, I think for this one, and again, you could have coaches, but it kind of like the comeback season, there really wasn't teams. It was just kind of like a cast, and they were fighting each other. And they could kind of bring that back, because at the end of the day, since they're not fighting for a contract, and as we've seen with other tough seasons, most of the guys usually get a couple fights anyway. They're fighting for a world championship. There's not really an incentive for one girl in the house to really help another girl. There's really, I mean, of any of the seasons, this one, really, you really don't care about the other. I mean, you're not really gonna want to help them out. I mean, if you're, like you said, Dave, like if you're Felice Herrig and you're friends with Carla Esparza, yeah, you are. But at the end of the day, only one of you can become the world champion. You're not just simply, fighting for a contract, and chances are you both get signed anyway. So maybe teams are even thrown out, like you said, and maybe that kind of lends to just kind of having like legendary coaches, kind of not just legendary, but guys like GSP or John Jones, kind of maybe there's like a coach every week. There's like a different coach that kind of comes and runs the camps, and I think that's kind of how they did the comeback season, if I'm not mistaken. Like they had kind of rotating coaches.
Yeah, those are things that they're gonna have to iron out, because freaks like me, I need to know these things. Like, we're gonna get to see a bracket. You know what I mean? Like, are the girls gonna know the bracket? Like, does Felice? I keep saying Felice because she's from the area, but is Felice gonna have? Are they gonna know that if she keeps winning, like she's got the possibility to match up with this girl, that girl, this, because between now and May, that's a lot of time to game plan for one of at least 12 other women. I mean, there's a lot of things that once it's ironed out, I'd really like to see it.
Hey, Jim, you were talking about Hall of Fame coaches or at least coaches that, fighters that aren't fighting anymore. I mean, the UFC has got a bunch of guys that are under contract, like Chuck Liddell, Matt Hughes, and Forrest Griffin. All those guys they're at the behest of the UFC. They can they're at their disposal. They could have those guys help out maybe.
Easily, and yeah, those would be three great guys to just kind of bring in. Even if it's not for the whole duration of the show, maybe it's like a couple weeks, and then kind of bring in like a couple more. I think they can kind of do something a little different, and I think that's great because I think for the last couple of years we've been doing the show, Dave, we kind of said, we may not really need a tough here in the United States. We'd like to see it more abroad and develop the international fighters and the international brand that is the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But I think by having this season Tough 20, it kind of injects some lifeblood into the Tough brand here in the United States. And I can safely say for the first time in, I don't know, 5 years, I'm actually legitimately excited for a season of The Ultimate Fighter.
I'm in agreement with that.
Well, you weren't excited for this past one? Rousey and Tate?
Not really.
No. I'll tell you this much, Ted. I was excited for the season because they're using the smaller weight classes with the guys, so I knew the fights were going to be good on this season, and to inject the life of the females coming in. What I wasn't, I'm 33 years old. I could care less if Ronda flips off Miesha Tate, because I saw Miesha Tate this Saturday and I said 3 words to her. You know what I mean? Like most people would have been like, "Oh my God."
What were those words?
Can you sign this?
I think that's 4.
You weren't wearing your media badge when you said that, were you?
It was tucked in underneath my shirt.
Good.
It wasn't a big deal.
So were you impressed? I mean, is she as hot in person as she is on film?
No, because I was sitting with Kat Zingano for 10 minutes. Like, we're totally going off on a tangent, but it's our show. We can do whatever we want. What turns me off about Miesha Tate is her attitude. That's what it is. But my basic point is, I was excited.
Her attitude, she's a sweetheart.
All right.
Dave did not like this. He sided more on Team Ronda Rousey this season.
Okay.
Hey. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that from the last show.
Though I was probably skewed more to the middle. I just had to keep up saying I kind of like Miesha Tate to kind of balance Dave's hate for Miesha Tate. So I seem like I'm more pro Miesha Tate, but I'm really just kind of like whatever. I just hope we get a good fight.
Here's my simple point, and then we can go into these. We can start talking about the strawweights. Miesha backed in to everything that she's got for this season. All this time that she got to rub shoulders with Ronda and get the publicity and all that kind of stuff, she backed into. She didn't earn any of that. She didn't earn one lick of it. And I understand that the UFC was in a situation.
Yeah, they asked her to do it. What are you going to do?
I know, but they asked her to do it.
You can't blame her. Can't blame her.
I can't, but I can be disingenuous because she got it.
All right, well let's
get off of this terrible topic.
Let's look at the 11 ladies that were signed from Invicta, or I guess you could say purchased would be the better word here, and they are current Invicta strawweight champion Carla Esparza, also signed Alex Chambers, Claudia Gadella, Felice Herrig, Bet Hyatt, Emily Kagan, Juliana Lima, Rose Namajunas, Tisha Torres, Paige Van Zant, and Joanne Calderwood. And I've seen about the majority of these ladies fight at least once. And with those 11 being purchased, most casts usually have at least 16 members. I would imagine for a tournament format, you gotta have that to make it all even when you kind of go into brackets and whatnot. So I don't know if that's going to be extended to 32. They're going to have to fight their way on the cast, or how they're going to do that for this season. But there's probably going to be at least 5 more ladies signed from, I would imagine, various organizations. You can maybe even see some of the ladies from the XFC's female division kind of make a move up. And we were talking before, there could be a chance that Jessica Rakoczy, who just fought for the 135 contract fight on this past season of Tough, she's more of a natural strawweight, so there's a chance maybe she kind of comes back on the show as well. So those could be who fills those final 5 spots. But I tell you what, just looking at those 11 right there, a lot of great matchups. Tisha Torres is excellent. Paige Van Zandt, she's only 19 years old, and she's already, 3-1. She's a up-and-comer. We know how good Gaudilla is if she can just stay healthy. Spars has been a very dominant chance of, Herrig didn't have a great fight this weekend, a great performance, but she's been a really good professional fighting at many different weight classes. Rose Namajunas, much like Paige Van Zandt, really young in her career, 2-1, but she looks real exciting. And then we all know about the brawler that is Beck Hyatt, and Joanne Calderwood, I think, is just improving every time we fight, and she was probably on the cusp of getting an Invicta title shot, obviously, before this happened. So I really like the 11 so far, and it'll be interesting to see who the next 5 are. But Dave, first up, your thoughts on these ladies that got purchased.
I hate making the point.
You need the headband, the Google Effects headband, to think.
Yeah, it's getting hot. It's hot in here.
Got too many lights down there?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Now you're good. All right.
Here's my thought. I think the cast is great. I think there's a lot of matchups that we could see that are very intriguing matchups. What I'm curious, Tisha Torres, to me, that fight against Esparza was going to be awesome if it happened. But can the UFC, when it brings in all these ladies, can they stand to have one of these ladies that has like 3 and 4 fights on? Can they have them be their world champion? Can the UFC go forward with Tisha Torres as their champion, being just 4-0, or Rose Namajunas being just 2-1? Can they move forward with that? Because aside from Felice Herrig, who did Tisha fight in her? I don't believe it was a huge name that she beat on her other 2 fights.
She beat Namajunas and Van Zandt.
Okay, so she's beat other people on the. I'm just saying.
I believe those are her other 2 fights that she won in Invicta.
Right. I mean, to me, just off the top of my head, I'm talking like what's the word I'm looking for here?
Thinko and not Van Zandt. I don't know, but I know she at least beat another person on this. I know she beat Rose Namajunas for sure.
Well, in the modern day, in the Zuffa-owned UFC, has there ever been a champion that's going to have, if it's one of these girls that's had less experience? The first one that I can think of that hasn't had many fights would be Chris Weidman, because I think he's 11-0. But I just wonder if the UFC kind of, you kind of know what I'm talking about, Jim. I just, you've got people like Felice, who's been around 9-5, Gaudella 11-0, and then you got these newbies, which is good for the sport and it's good for the UFC. But can they have them be the champion moving forward?
Ted, do you want to go off that and your thoughts on the cast members, at least so far?
Yeah, no, just to touch on what Dave's talking about. I mean, if say somebody who's 4-0 ends up being champion, I mean, they've proven themselves to be champion. I mean, if they beat somebody who's 9-5 or 10-2 or whatever, and they go through all the brackets and they get all the way, and win the championship, then they're the champion. I don't know that numbers really matter. I mean, we know that. Well, I remember maybe it was a year or 2 ago. There was a Ultimate Fighter tryout, and Dana White said, "Hey, listen, we want you guys to have a lot of fights on your record. Go out and get as many fights as you can on your record, and it doesn't matter if you're fighting cans. We want you to be 10-0, 11-1." So it's almost as though he was talking about padding. And these girls may not have as many fights, but being in Invicta, they're fighting. A lot of these girls, as we said, have fought each other, so they're getting top quality fights. They may not. It's quality over quantity, I guess you could say. And also the other thing is that the female divisions haven't been around as long as the male divisions have, so they haven't had as much time to to get as many fights under their belt. So yeah, no, I think everything's going to work out just fine, and just by looking at the how deep this group is, I've been hearing things like, oh, Tisha Torres, and she's saying it herself, she's going to be the champion, but you've got Esparza who already is the champion. Then you hear a lot about Rowdy Beck Hyatt, and of course the little bulldog there, Felice Herrig. So a lot of big names, a lot of talent there. So I think whoever becomes a champ is going to deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's going to be 16 girls on the cast, that means you got to win 5 fights to cap the championship, 4 within the season, and the 5th winning the championship on the finale card. So, I mean, if you're, like you kind of mentioned, Dave, if you're like Rose Namajunas, 2-1 in your professional career, and you win 5 fights in a row beating the likes of Esparza and Herrig and Torres and Van Zandt and Hyatt, even if, like you said, I hope they count on the record, but even if it's the tough thing and they don't count, so she officially becomes the champion at 2-1, but realistically she's 7-1. I mean, she deserves to be the world champion.
Yeah.
And I just hope that whoever, if it was maybe another division, and when we see these names on here, and regardless of what division it was going to be promoted, just whether it was a male or female, and the UFC bought a new division, and people look over the names and they're like, I haven't heard of any of these people, maybe there'd be a little more skepticism. But the fact that there's a good quality of known quantities, world champions, and some title contenders, it makes it a little more legitimate, I think.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up valid points. What's interesting? The more and more we talk about this, the more questions that pop up. You were talking about like Rose being 2-1, and she's going to have to go through and win, and it's just like they have to make these fights legit and count on the records, because it just there's so much logistical stuff that I need to know, just because I'm so nuts about all the ins and outs of everything.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I personally enjoyed the live season, and I'm not just saying that because Darren Cruikshank went to my high school, and I had fun watching him, and we've had him on the show, 3 or 4 times, Dave, and he's a funny guy, and we like having him on. But I thought that was legitimately a great season, because when you looked at Tough, you knew you were going to see the fight, and you saw the stuff leading up into it, and I don't know, I felt a little more engaged.
I thought the production. I thought the production really sucked on that. I mean, it was so stilted.
Maybe could have handled a little different, but I mean, I thought it was cool. Like, if there wasn't any fights those couple weeks, we got to see one guaranteed live fight. I guess maybe that's why. I don't know, and they could even do it to where, I see on that season they only had 1 fight per episode, but maybe they could do 2 fights to kind of speed it up just a little bit, and maybe that would help too, instead of having it. What were they there, like 12 weeks?
Yeah, you know what, though? I don't think they would ever do a live, because with a tournament like this, there's 1,000 things going on, because medicals have to be taken care of, so they can't do a live fight, because what if Felice walks out there and elbows, Gaudella, and she's cut open, but Gaudella wins, and she can't fight for 6 weeks? They can't just be like, oh, go home. She's under contract. You know what I mean?
I mean, that would happen regardless. I mean, if someone gets a serious cut.
Well, yeah, that's true.
If it's a tape season, they got to replace her because they're only taping those 6 weeks.
Right.
I mean,
get somebody else.
Either way, well, in that case, they got to do maybe what Bellator does and not allow elbows. And maybe I know in Tough before they haven't done that, but again, it wasn't for a world championship.
Right. That furthers.
I don't know. That's kind of
exceptions may change with this season, because to me, you're bringing in what should be on paper the 16 best female 115 pounders, and wouldn't it suck if they lost their chance at a world title just because they got cut in like the opening round and then they couldn't fight for it?
But that's the sport, though, Jim.
I know, but I mean, you got to try. If they can minimize it as much as possible. That's all I'm not saying.
I don't think they should outlaw elbows. That's diluting the sport.
Yeah, I mean, if it's one thing of like not being able to throw elbows, I feel like that doesn't Yeah, I mean, is there a difference watching the Bellator tournament fights and not seeing the elbows?
I
Yeah,
always hated
but are that many fights the outcomes changed because they're not throwing elbows? Is the person that won, or the person that lost, they lost because they weren't able to throw elbows?
No, but it's just, I don't know. To me, it's an integral part of the sport. I was always disappointed because didn't Strikeforce do that too? They didn't allow. I think Strikeforce.
I don't know for 100%.
I think Strikeforce had
I know.
that.
I know.
And
Pride
same thing with
didn't have
Bellator.
elbows.
You know, I just never agreed with it.
I know injuries are a part of the game. I'm just saying if they could do it to just kind of minimizes the chance just because
it's not like elbows are. I mean, it's a legitimate move. You know what I mean?
No, it is. I completely agree that they should be in the game, and I don't mind them being on tough. I'm just saying, obviously, until the championship fight, just to give them a chance that a cut or some kind of weird fluky thing doesn't hinder their chances, even if the rest of them is physically fine. That's all.
My thing with the elbows is I agree, I think, with Ted that they shouldn't outlaw the elbows, because if you're on your back, you should at least have to be aware that an elbow could be coming your way. Because if you're just back there like, oh, all I'm going to do is take these little punches to the head, it should at least be there in your mind that, I got to work to get out of this position so that she doesn't destroy me with an elbow. And I don't know. I know most of the ladies, but like Juliana Lima, for all I know, she may be a ground and pound specialist that only uses her elbows. You take that away from her, you're taking away a legitimate shot for her to make life-changing money and be the world champion in the UFC because you're worried that, Tisha Torres might get cut and there's a huge sponsor deal or whatever if she becomes the champ.
I see both your guys' points. Like I said, I like elbows in general. I don't think they should completely outlawed from the sport or anything. I'm just saying for this reality TV show, to try to give everyone the best possible chance, that's at least something they can consider. If it doesn't happen, fine. I'm not going to be like, oh, they allowed elbows. I'm not going to watch it. It's a completely travesty or something. But I'm just saying, you're in one fight, maybe you accidentally bump heads, and that's how you get the cut. Or maybe you take one elbow the whole fight, and that cut opens up against the eyebrow, and the doctor said, no, the rest of you physically fine, but you can't fight because of that cut. That's what I'm saying. The stuff like that, not like, oh, you were in a fight and you got hit 50 times with an elbow and you were going to lose. At that point, it doesn't really matter. But just the one freak blow, I guess, is what I'm trying to avoid, I guess.
Hey, Ted, don't let Jim fool you. He would say something like that. He would say, "Oh, I'm not going to watch The Ultimate Fighter because there's there's no elbows."
I'm not that. I'm not that petty.
Hey, I was just going to bring that up because Jim said he was getting excited for this one.
I am getting. I would still be excited. I would just be a little less excited.
That's going to ruin it for you, huh, Jim?
Yeah, no, well, maybe a little bit. No. Here's the thing. I'm going to watch.
Come on, man.
If it's bad or good, I watch every season, and even if it's bad, like I had to get through season 10. That was probably the worst season I've ever seen in my life. Like, just watching every episode was like, ugh, gotta watch Ultimate Fighter. I watch it. That's like the one show I'm in. I gotta watch it.
Let me ask you this question.
At the end of the day, it's still MMA.
Let me ask you this question. I'll get Ted's response. I'll be Jim now, okay? Okay, Ted. I'm Jim.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You gotta have the microphone here.
Hello. Okay, this past season did very well in the ratings, and it was kind of a decline for a little bit, and then it kind of started to go back up with this season of The Ultimate Fighter. Do you think that this season, and this kind of goes back to the coaches, who they decide on the coaches or if they're going to be coaches, do you think that the mainstream public will watch this season with a weight class we've never seen before, with a lot of fighters that people who normally watch the sport haven't seen before.
Okay. You're talking about Tough 20.
Tough 20, yes, sir.
That's a good question. My first response was going to be no. I was going to say no. It's only going to be the hardcores that are going to be involved, or that are going to be interested. And you know, not even all hardcores like WMMA. Not everybody agrees with the whole female MMA thing. Still, believe it or not. But if like Jim, you were saying, if we can get enough big name coaches like Chuck Liddell or whoever, I mean Anderson Silva, for God's sake, if we can get enough of those involved and put them in the promos, hyping it up, there's a chance that kind of more of the mainstream fan base will be interested in it, I think.
Okay.
And real quick, and I think it helps that this is going to be like the fall Ultimate Fighter and not like the spring Ultimate Fighter, because the NFL is so huge with Fox. And how many times have you watched football on Sunday and you saw like Troy Aikman or any of their other announcers like, hey, this week on the Ultimate Fighter, see what Ronda Rousey does. And
yeah, right.
That, you know, I don't know. I don't have the numbers to say, oh, this many people watched that game, saw that many promo, that correlates to that many people watching the next episode of The Ultimate Fighter. I don't know. I'm sure there's a company that's probably does that, and they probably have those numbers. I don't have that in front of me, but I got to believe that that helps the season. It can't hurt. I feel like that can't hurt at all. And so for the Tough 20, I think that will really help the fact that it'll be cross-promoted with the NFL that season. And then the spring season, I know Fox has baseball, but that's not as heavily watched as the football. So the Tough 19, won't have as that great of cross-promotion exposure within the other Fox brands, because it'll be going over the spring as opposed to this one going over the fall.
Okay, I'm still going to play Jim, but I'm going to answer a little bit too. You know, as you guys were talking, I'm thinking to myself back and forth, I want these girls to succeed on their own, but I don't think that people will tune in if it's just them on their own. If they can get a little rub from Anderson Silva or GSP or whoever to get people to tune in, I think people will fall for the 115 pounds hook, line, and sinker. I keep going back to it, but when I went to Invicta, I was going because, hey, it's a live fight, it's a big show, but I was impressed. And 90% of the fights went to decision, and I was still impressed with the talent of all the different weight classes in women's MMA. And I think once people watch it, it's going to explode. It's going to be huge. And yet, like I said, if they need GSP, Chuck Liddell, Mark Coleman, whoever, to be the coach, then you know what? I think they need to do it, because this is the fresh injection that the UFC needs right now. Let me put my Jim hat back on again. All right.
I didn't realize you took it off.
Wait, I know. I thought you were Jim that whole time.
Okay. Hold on a second. You look at all these jokers around here. All right. There was one other question I was going to ask you. I forgot. Jim, stall for time while I rethink.
So this is what goes on in the behind the scenes of Beyond the Cage podcast that you guys don't hear. That doesn't make the cut, so to speak. I kind of leave it on the floor, as they say. So, but most of the time we don't have a third person in the booth, so to speak. Ted, and you're here this. And while Dave's thinking of the question, I kind of mentioned UFC on Fox 9 just a little bit. Of course, our listeners, if you haven't listened already, we gave our picks. It's on our Facebook page. But real quickly, Ted, 4 fights, main card, three of them alpha male guys. We ended up picking all the alpha male guys, and we ended up picking Joe Lazzone. You just kind of your quick hits. I'm sure you're probably going to do a full video on your YouTube channel. You do pretty much for every fight. So, but just a quick synopsis here in this video. Who you like this weekend on UFC on Fox 9?
Yeah, I like most of the alpha male guys. There's that we probably read, or I know I've read. You guys have probably read about the Bang effect or the Ludwig effect, where this guy has been incredible. Dwayne Bang Ludwig with coaching the alpha male guys. So I think Uriah Faber's going to win, probably by decision over Michael McDonald. Mendez, picking Mendez. He's another alpha male guy. Excuse me. Let's see. Who else do we have? Run that down for me. If you
we got Lazone and Danzig, and then the main event's Johnson and Benavidez flyweight title.
Right. I picked Benavidez. I think that. See, I look back on my video that I did for their first fight, which I think was UFC 152.
Yes, you are correct.
And I scored that 3-2, 3 rounds to 2 for Benavidez. So that's me. I think he's going to be able to do it this time. He's got to get his timing right because Mighty Mouse is so fast. He's just got to catch him. He has the knockout power. I believe he knocked him down at least once the last fight, and Benavidez has that sick. It's a guillotine from the mount. I think he had caught him in it once as well in that first fight, but he wasn't able to finish it. But that's really his. I think is his go-to submission. So, but I don't know that he's going to be able to finish Mighty Mouse, but you might have to. You know how that goes with champions.
Yeah,
they usually get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, it's not your game of attack as a challenger is you're probably not going to win a decision. I think when
can you say GSP versus Hendricks?
Yeah, when we were talking about GSP Hendricks, I think we could only think of maybe like 2 instances in the last like 5 or 6 years where a close decision went to the challenger. I think it was Forrest Griffin against Rampage Jackson was one, and I forget the other, but it was like there was like one other one where the challenger came out. But other than that, the champion. Matt Henderson against Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Those were like the only 2 we could think of in the last like 6 years where the challenger got the benefit of the doubt in the decision. But
yeah,
Dave, go to your point. You got your gym hat back on.
Yeah, no. I couldn't exactly think, but I came up with a different question anyway. The finale of this season of The Ultimate Fighter, how amazing is it going to be that we're going to see? It's going to be loaded with strawweight fights up and down. And me and Jim, we're both big proponents of the 125-pound with the guys. And I think we're both going to be huge fans of this 115 weight class. How great's that finale going to be when all these ladies are in the UFC fighting in one night? I'm a fan.
Yeah, I think realistically, kind of like you can just have all the cast members fight against each other. You can have those 8 fights, and if you want to add a couple of higher profile fights in some of the other divisions, so be it. But realistically, you got 8 fights booked right there, and then you can add 3 or 4, and have a 12-fight card or 10-fight, however many extra fights they want to add. But
you have to throw a few dude fights in there.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll put like some relevant like #1 contender or a flyweight title fight because they disrespect that division, unfortunately. So
the gym hat is back. I just remembered my question. Ted,
wow. Let's do it.
The 125-pound title in the men's division, we've yet to see it defended on pay-per-view, I believe. Maybe the first time.
It was inaugural fight was on pay-per-view, but it has not been a pay-per-view main event. It was the co-main event because that was Jones Vitor.
Correct.
That was the only time. All the other times it's been on another
My question for you, Ted, is the 115-pound title, the straw weight title, is that going to be the defended only on cable TV belt for the women, or do you think we'll actually see them headline a pay-per-view with the 115-pounders?
Well, before I answer that, the 125 belt. I mean, 152 was when that decided it. That fight there decided.
Right.
It.
Yeah, that's why I said that was the only time.
You're saying after Mighty Mouse won it, he has not defended it. Although he has successfully defended it, he hasn't done so.
Just hasn't been on pay-per-view. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well. Eventually, I mean, there's that potential there. I think it would have to depend on a couple of things. I mean, first of all, the success of the season. You know, putting them on the map. They got to get on. They got to get themselves on the map first of all. So if it's a rousing success, then they're off on the right foot. But you know, maybe give it some time.
Right.
You know, I guess the 125 division, you know, with the men, you know, you guys say you're great fans of it. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I find the fights exciting, but there's a lot of people out there that don't like that division. You know, they're saying, these guys they don't finish or I think that's the biggest criticism, right?
Right.
Yeah, which is the same. I think. What we say, Dave? A UFC card isn't that good unless it has a flyweight fight.
Yeah, it's not really. It's not a legitimate UFC card if there's not a flyweight on it. It's half joking, half serious, but I mean, we love the flyweight weight class, and
I'm always
like all the guys in it. I just feel like they should get their due about being a main event on a pay-per-view card. I mean, is that so hard to ask for? You know?
Yeah, no. I think it should happen, but unfortunately, I mean, the UFC is probably going on popularity, and they're saying, "Hey, look," instead of trying to promote that division, I think they may be looking at the popularity as it stands right now and saying, you know, we don't want to take that risk.
And it could be, you know, maybe they feel that Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, even though how great as he is, I mean. He really just kind of has that one finished victory against Moraga, and that didn't happen all the way until the fourth round. It's not like, you know, he went out there and submitted Moraga in the first round. And maybe that all changes. You know, if Benavidez comes out, knocks him out fantastically, you know, that's a whole different guy that they kind of gotta like get behind now. And maybe Benavidez is a different guy, and maybe that gets him to pay-per-view. You know, I don't know, or John Dodson comes back stronger. I mean, it could just be, you know, they think Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. I mean. For as great as he is, you know, he doesn't have a lot of finishes. You look at the majority of his fights, regardless of weight class, majority of his wins are by decision. And
right, yeah, he's a bit. I mean, he's a bit of a boring fighter, I guess you could say, in one sense. I mean, he's kind of like a Ben Henderson, you know. Yeah, you know, he can go for miles. You know, he can go all 5 rounds and look as fresh as he did the first round, but. Yeah, just not a very exciting fighter. Not a lot of finishing power.
Any
finishing ability, thoughts? I guess.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on Tough 20, Dave?
Once the kinks are ironed out and I can see what's going to happen, I think this has the possibility of being a great season. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think the UFC knocked it out. That this is an easy 9.5. I just want to see the stuff ironed out, Jim. I want to know the most intriguing thing to me, I think, would be if the UFC sets up the tournament, kind of like Bellator does. Could you imagine if they said that Felice Herrig was going to fight Rose Namajunas, and they told us that at the Silva Weidman pay-per-view? To where you were thinking about all of those first-round matchups for like 3.5, 4 months. You know what I mean? Like, lay it out there.
I think that would be great. And then it goes kind of to the secondary market, with Vegas being the king of sports betting, that you would already have betting lines already going for the opening round, whereas with it being kind of kept secret and stuff, you can't really do that.
Right, and I mean, think about how crazy it is for March Madness. The UFC could do that. They could even do it in February, right before all of that, and just all it does is generate buzz for the 115ers, and people are going to be like, oh my God, I got to see this. And I just think once they get those kinks out and we see, Dana said it 1,000 times, Jim, and Ted, you've heard it too, that wait till you see what they have in store for us. So I'm waiting, and like I said, knocked it out of the park, I think. Women's MMA, get on that train because it's picking up steam, and it's going to be the next big thing.
Ted, to you and your final thoughts on this announcement.
Yeah, I was just laughing because I could hear the excitement in Dave's voice. It's like, dude, easy there. I was going to say something perverted, but I'll leave that out.
It's all right.
Anyway, no, I'm looking forward to it. You know, the personalities there. Felice Herrig is, you know, she's kind of a lover or hater kind of person, you know. She does a lot of those sexy photo shoots and stuff like that, and some people have a problem with that, you know. And Tisha Torres, Tisha, I guess it is. You know, there's a lot of people that are very excited about her. So yeah, no, I'm just interested to see. You know, I mean, in addition to the fights are going to be great, and because yeah, we've got the top strawweights here. So you know, it's like I don't know how to put it exactly, but I mean, we're not getting people that are unheard of, like a lot of times happens with the Ultimate Fighter. These are even if they only have 4 fights to their record, these are seasoned female fighters. So and with big personalities. So we're going to see good fights and who knows what in the Tough House.
Well, before we end, of course, I want to give people right here on our YouTube channel a heads up. We will not only be doing it on YouTube, but it'll be kind of simulcast or aired on Beyond the Cage as well. Ted will be joining us, as well as hopefully some other of our friends in the MMA world. We're going to do like a huge Beyond the Cage end of the year award special. We got 8 categories lined up to give you guys our thoughts on the major things that happened in 2013. And I'm really excited for this. We wanted to do something like this last year. Dave and I didn't get a chance to, and this year we're able to. And glad definitely Ted's joining us. We love having you on these videos and love having you on the show. So definitely great to get your input. We're going to have hopefully some guys from MMA Freak, MMA Insider, Vigilante MMA. We're going to try to make it big and give you guys our thoughts because people like the year-end videos. They like to hear who people think is Fighter of the Year, what was Fight of the Year, what was the Event of the Year. So we got a lot of different categories lined up for you guys. I'm really excited to do that.
Maybe even
towards the week of Christmas around there, because that'll be our kind of taking the week off from the Beyond the Cage studios, and that will be kind of our show. So we're really excited for that coming up.
May even have a personality from ESPN 1000 and perhaps a ring card girl from Invicta FC. Just saying.
All right.
We're trying to make it big. It's the end of the year.
End of the year show, Ted. You think I'm excited about women's MMA? Stand by for that show. I may have to stand up the whole time.
No, I was going to say, don't move the camera, please. I don't want it to pan down.
Hey Jim, did you want to before we get out of here? Did you want to put a cap on your thoughts on 20? Tough 20?
My thoughts on 20. At first, I was kind of sad to see, like, man, Invicta's lost all their girls. But then at the same time, I'm happy because these girls get a chance to fight at the highest stage in their sport. And the fact that it's not just simply fighting for a contract and fighting for a world championship is tremendous. And like I was saying, it injects lifeblood into what I thought was kind of a dying show here in the United States, to show that I think it kind of outlived its purpose. And I don't know if they'll do more seasons after 20, but I would be happy that if Tough ended season 20, ended crowning a world champion, and at least here in the United States, like, that's how Tough went on. I think in this day and age, I'd like to see it expand more internationally, but at least for Tough 20, we got something that I think is truly groundbreaking. And I wasn't sure the UFC with this particular reality show could do anything more groundbreaking that has already been done. So I'm really interested for, and like you said, Dave, just what we're going to hear in the next 6 months, whether there's going to be brackets or who's going to be coaching, or whether they're going to be different coaches, whether it's going to be live. A lot of stuff to hear in the upcoming weeks, and that makes it all the more exciting.
Speaking of international expansion, just a shout out, January 15th, Tough Nations starts, Canada and Australia. So
I'll probably have to watch that online, and hopefully, at least with those two countries, we won't have to worry about subtitles like the Brazilian season. Those are very hard to follow.
Those are the worst.
I watched like 5 episodes of the first season, and I was like, it's reading subtitles, but it's like, I can't do that. It wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. So, so Ted, thanks again for joining us on the hangout here, and definitely look forward
thanks for having me on.
To your stuff.
All right, what's that, Tim? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying thanks for coming on.
Yeah, not a problem, man.
And Dave, of course, as always, my co-host. Great stuff as usual. Especially when you put on your gym thinking cap. That's new. You're gonna have to bring that back to the show because I like that. Oh boy. All these stuff the Google Hangouts can provide you. So again, Ted Czech on Twitter at Ted Czech, just his name. Dave Sadler's at Vigilante Juice, and I'm on Twitter at Jim Gramm. So until next time for Beyond the Cage, of course, you can listen to it on Vigilante MMA and a whole bunch of other sites, MMAinsider.net, MMAfreak.com, brought to you by Intimidation Clothing. So thanks once again, and we'll see y'all guys for our end of the year show. So bye, everybody.